One more quick update tonight about the case that I reviewed last night, and that's the disappearance of Suzanne Simpson. There's been a new court document filed, and I'd be lying if I didn't say that it makes me unreasonably angry. It's another instance of how our so-called justice system seems built only around the perpetrators and criminals, and not the victims. Too often, victims and their loved ones are silenced to protect the monsters. For example, defense attorneys can hold press conferences and declare their clients innocent, even lie about the case. But the loved ones of the victims and prosecution, like in this case, are silenced. Law enforcement will almost always be shredded during trials, but they can't speak out to tell the truth until after, when no one is listening anymore, and it will mean nothing to the case. And here we have an example of what I'm talking about with this document. The court has just put out an order concerning publicity and the release of information to non-parties. What does this mean? After speaking on how the court is trying to balance the right of a defendant to a fair trial with the First Amendment right of the parties, counsel for the parties, and the media, they go on to say that they find it necessary to issue a gag order in this case. A gag order is not a balance between the defendant's rights and the First Amendment. It exclusively serves the defendant. By its nature, it's one-sided and the opposite of free speech. The court states its reasoning for doing this being the emotional nature of the issues, the extensive media coverage, statements made by parties, agents, and anticipated testifying witnesses revealing information contained in discovery that is not presently subject to public disclosure, but has been published and broadcast by local and national media. What makes me the maddest here is that I believe this is directed at one of Suzanne's own daughters, who has spoken out both on a podcast and on her personal Instagram account. And this is the court effectively taking away her right to express her trauma and her pain in the way that she wanted to. She's dealing with the triple burden here. Her mother is missing, most likely dead. Her father's being held on murder charges. And she has younger siblings, one is only 5 years old, that she no doubt feels responsibility to now care for and protect. That is an unreasonable load for someone so young. Her posts on Instagram have been beautiful, warm, beautiful tributes to her mother, and sharing beautiful, loving pictures and videos of her little sisters. These days, that's what people do. They share their lives online. They get release, they feel heard, they get comfort. It's her right to do this. This is her family. This is her pain. She's also been very brave and outspoken, picking up the fight against domestic violence, something that she and her siblings were unfortunate enough to not only have lived through, but to see it escalate to the highest level possible, the death of her mother. And the court is now effectively silencing her. She made a story that proclaimed that her father killed her mother. That's her right to express what she believes to be true. I can't imagine what it felt like to her and to her siblings as the details of their father's movements after her mother's disappearance made it crystal clear that something was not right. And as her heart and her mind had to come to terms with what that meant, it had to have been devastating. I'm angry for her because being silenced in this situation is yet another thing to make her feel helpless in facing this situation where there's very little that she can even do right now. The document states, the court finds that any further interviews, statements, or releases of non-publicly disclosed information contained in discovery to the media would only serve to increase the volume of pretrial publicity. The court finds that any further interviews, statements, or releases of non-publicly disclosed information contained in discovery would result in the kind of pretrial publicity that would interfere with the defendant's right to a fair trial by an impartial jury. The court further finds that no less restrictive means exists to treat the specific threat to the judicial process generated by this pretrial publicity. The court further finds that an order restricting extrajudicial commentary by counsel for the parties and their agents is necessary to preserve all venue options, and a delay in proceedings would not lessen the publicity generated by this case. And so they feel it necessary to make this decree. Now, point 1 focuses on attorneys and their staff. That makes sense. They have to go by the Texas Code of Professional Responsibility. They should follow those anyway with or without a gag order. Point 2 adds law enforcement to this. that they cannot discuss this case with the media. Now, does that mean they can't update the public, say for example in a press conference, if her body is found? If new evidence is found that he was observed somewhere that was previously unknown and unseen, can they not ask the public in that area, in a press conference as usual, who may have seen him, ask them to come forward? I mean, what exactly does this mean? No updates to the public at all anymore? That seems a bit extreme. Now 3 and 4, this is where they get to the witnesses. They're including anyone who's given statements to law enforcement personnel. That's a lot of people. That's her friends, that's her family, that's her children. Anyone who's given statements to the DA's office, or who've given statements in any kind of testifying proceedings. And then 4 tells them they shall not discuss this case with the media. And then 5 clears up. This doesn't mean that they can't attend court sessions. They can do that. And of course, the attorneys are free to speak with the witnesses about the case and any evidence that may come up. And then it shows the judge's signature. This may or may not have modifications in the future, but for now, her family and loved ones and law enforcement are effectively legally silenced, and it just makes me sad. But it's just another one of those situations where it feels like the justice system is more concerned with the defendant's rights than the victim's rights. I will be keeping you updated on anything new on this case as well. Until then, this is Cassidy O'Connell saying stay well and stay tuned.